Hello everybody, Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today, even though I'm not Captain America, I feel a little bit like a superhero today. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the superheroes that started this great country when they put their pen to paper on July the 4th, 1776. Now, each of those men who signed that Declaration of Independence knew that they were signing their own death warrants by the King of England. But this did not matter to them because they saw what the greater good was that was out ahead of them. They had this great telos out in front of them, that they had this objective that they knew that we could all get to. And this is where we've come. And even though we're in a bit of turmoil right now, there is a path through this, and it comes with being level-headed and being wise about things, not using our internet brains, using our dad brains, which are common sense oriented and results oriented. And it's a discipline factor. So I talked a little bit about in the podcast the other day about the echo effect that's happening abroad in other countries and how the progressivism is starting to bounce back, and the citizens are saying, we don't want this. This isn't working for me. And they're going back to more conservative type politicians that they're electing into office. And I said, the good thing about this is that these are young people that they're electing in. These are young people who have lived through this and seen that they're not going to put up with this nonsense. They are not going to let somebody tell them that what they see is not what they're seeing. So, and neither did these patriots, these men of great faith and wisdom in 1776 that set this country under a foundation of godliness, that all men are created equal, and that our rights come from God and not from man. So this was wise in its outset, and it was superhuman, super heroic, and it's something we need to aspire to in our own lives. I'm not saying we need to put a death warrant on ourselves or anything like that, but in a dance with evil, you break out all the guns you got. So I really am thankful for what these forefathers set us out on in 1776. I think about how these men and the women of their day, their wives, had to be with them on this as well. One of my dogs is here, so if you hear the jingling, that's River. Okay, River. Hey, leave it alone. Thank you. And, the women had to have just been phenomenal in the lives of these men to help give them the strength, the courage, the wisdom, and the grace to do what it is they needed to do. So I just really think that there's a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be super appreciative of and a lot to aspire to as we're in the midst right now of a possible feeling like what could be a second revolution here in this country. Good things came out of the last revolution. Hopefully good things will come out of this one too, and it won't be a bloody war this time. It'll be more of an ideological war, and we can welcome the little unicorns back into our lives and let them know that all is forgiven and we can all work together and we can all find common solutions. But they're going to have to be dad-brained oriented and not internet-brained. So with this being the 4th of July, I wanted to tell everyone about a little tradition that I used to have back here in Rome City when I had the property. And it was an immense property, and directly across the road from the property I had there, the town of Rome City and the Lake Association would fire off their huge fireworks display each year. It was a magnificent display, and people came from all over to see it because it was just quite an investment in pride and honor by this town. But with my property, we had a front row seat to all this, and if you didn't live on the lake, it was hard for people in the town to have a great vantage point. They always got a sideways view of it, and it wasn't the best situation. So one of the women that worked there, her name was Ruby Ramey. She came to me one day and just kind of quietly and off to the side, sort of said, it sure would be nice. And I said, yeah, it would be nice. So I said, go ahead and tell everyone that they're welcome to come on out, and they'll have to park up here, but walk on down. Ask them to, hold back on the beer and the alcohol and things like that down there, and try to make it more of a kid-friendly atmosphere. So these families would come out hours ahead of the event, set their lawn chairs out there. We would grill hot dogs and hamburgers and all the fun things, and kids would run around and, water balloons, all that fun stuff. We just did all kinds of just things that were fun for the kids and the family to sit back and just have a relaxing time with not having to worry about the kids running off someplace, because there was really nowhere to go. So there was this one family that I've been talking with, Ed, a youngster about, 3 to 4 years old, I guess. And he was a neat little kid, and he was all excited about these fireworks that night. He was telling me all about how it was going to go down, and, what even some of the names of these, great fireworks were, the spider, and all this stuff, the sunburst, and he knew all these different names. And he was just infatuated with it all. So I said, well, I'm going to watch the fireworks with this kid. Well, when the fireworks started, the booms and the bangs and things like that were too much for the young boy. His ears were hurting him. We even had little earbuds and stuff like that to put in there for him to soften the noise, but that was still too much for him, so he was too scared. So I took the family back up to the main building, and I said, well, why don't we go inside? We can watch from inside. And they thought that might be okay, but it was still too much for the young boy. He was still too horrified and scared by that, which he thought was going to be awesome, but it was just too much for him. He was just too afraid, and it probably hurt his ears too much. So in looking for something to try to occupy this kid's time, I substituted. I said, hey, would you like to ring the bells and fight back? And he says, what do you mean? I said, well, I've got bells up in the belfry there. I said, why don't we go up there? You and your mom can ring the bells, and you can fight back against all the noise. And he didn't know how that was going to work. I said, let's just go try it. So we went up to the loft, the organ loft, and where the bells, the ropes hung down. And I showed the mother and the boy, where they were. And I told them to start pulling on them, nice and even. And they got going. And the little boy was so small, he would fly up in the air as he was holding on. The rope would pull him up in the air. So he was flying 3 feet off the ground each time with each pull. And it was just a lot of fun to watch this little boy just have this moment, and his mother to watch it. And unfortunately, they didn't have the cell phones with the cameras and everything at that time. So it was just a moment that was caught by the family and I in that time. And it was just wonderful to watch this little boy. His whole attitude changed. He was fighting back with these bells. Well, he and his mother rang those bells off and on for about a solid 10 minutes until they were totally worn out. And nobody really heard it because with the percussion of all the fireworks going on at that time, and the steady staccato of booms and bursts that was going on, it was just one of those moments that gets fixed in the history back in my mind. And I think about it on the 4th of July each year, about this little boy flying up in the air and just giggling, and his whole demeanor had changed. And I don't know how this family thinks about that, but that had to have been one of the best 4th of Julys they ever had. And it was all from inside a bell tower, and they could hear what was going on outside. But what was really going on with them was what was going on inside with this family having this moment. So it was really pretty cool, and just one of those funny things to think back about. So, but then when it was all done, I was able to have a moment with the family to tell them a little bit about the apparitions that had happened there, and what Our Lady's call was for purity, and how it matters, and it's not a Catholic thing, it's an everybody thing. And they were really taken by it, and they were taken by it so much so, and this little boy remembered that, because when I came back to the property in 2018, he came to me at that time. He'd had graduated high school, and he was back just visiting, and he came back through and playfully was asking me for a job. And I do. He says, well, I'm really good at ringing church bells. And I looked at him, and I didn't recognize who it was, and he told me who he was, and we both just had a good laugh. But that kid remembered it all that time, and he always thought about that property as being a comforting place and a respite from the noise and the attacks that he was feeling outside, and how what something he thought was going to be great turned out to be terrifying for him. But what he found was a peace and the reserve inside the structure, being distracted by ringing the bells in this, what I would consider to be a holy place. But he was able to recall back to me what I talked about, the call to purity and making good choices. And I said, wow, you remembered all that. He says, I've been living that way my whole life. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, he says, I remembered that, and it made sense. And my mom and dad reminded me about it all the time, that, my life and what I become is up to me and my choices that I make. And whether somebody says no, I can still succeed. I just have to do what I know is right. And I started to tear up a little bit. I thought, wow, things that you don't know you're doing when you're doing it. So that was pretty cool. To have this now young man come back and tell me how that silly little moment in my eyes, changed him and made him and has inspired him. So these are Featherstrokes, people. Featherstrokes, you never know what they're going to do, but they work. And that's how we're going to get through this. Featherstrokes. So have a happy 4th of July. Remember, I love you, and I'll be back.